Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. The Democratic Republic of Congo has one of the world's largest populations of child soldiers. The UN Children's Fund estimates up to 30,000 children are forced to serve various armed groups as soldiers, sexual slaves and laborers. Michelle Chikwanine, who is now a refugee in Canada, was one of them. Lisa Bryant caught up with him in Normandy, France, and has this report for VOA.
Michel Chikwanine is a long way from eastern Congo, where he grew up, but not from the memories of war. They haunt him every night, ever since he was captured by rebels at the age of 5, playing soccer with his friends.
And so I started to cry, and I begged them again to let me go home. Instead, they forced me to kill someone, and they forced me to kill my best friend.
Chikwanine was drugged and trained to use firearms before he managed to escape. But more violence followed. Chikwanine's family became casualties of the Democratic Republic of Congo's chronic unrest that has killed and displaced millions during the past 2 decades. His father, a human rights activist, was kidnapped. Then soldiers came to his house and grabbed his mother and 2 sisters.
And they started to rape them. And they held me on a wall, and they told me to watch what was happening to try and send a message to my father.
I started screaming at them, telling them to let me go home. Eventually, they hit me with a gun in the back of my head, and I passed out.
Today, Chikwanine talks about his experience to audiences around the world, including here in Normandy. His family fled to Uganda, but then his father died, apparently from poisoning. Soon after, the remaining family was granted asylum in Canada.
In one American sector, enemy resistance was only...
France's western Normandy region is a fitting place to talk about war. Tens of thousands of soldiers died here during World War II. Most were barely past childhood.
Reinforcements continued to pour ashore.
In the DRC, clerics are spearheading the fight for peace and demanding long-delayed elections be held. From his diocese in southern DRC, Bishop Fulgence Muteba has tried to help former child soldiers.
These were children who were traumatized, psychologically and inhumanely battered. They almost had no feelings. They were so familiar with violence that their lives were no longer worth living.
Bishop Muteba says many are left to cope on their own. Some commit suicide. Others return to further violence. Chikwanine says even those who make it are forever scarred.
My fear is that we've become a community, an international community that normalizes wars, but does not normalize peace. And this is what is happening in the Congo specifically.
He hopes the lessons of Normandy, where an international peace conference was held this month, will carry over to DRC. Lisa Bryant for VOA News, Caen, France.
Egyptian artist and assistant professor Mai Ali Nada depicts nature and animals, turns blank wooden canvas into meticulously crafted works of art using a wood-burning pen. The trickiest part is that there's no room for error. Any mistake made cannot be erased or fixed. Take a look.
Egyptian artist and assistant professor Mai Ali Nada does not need a wide color palette to create her striking portraits and sketches. Nada draws people and depicts nature and animals with a single tool, a wood-burning pen, an art technique called pyrography. The wood burner, powered by electricity, heats up and burns the wood in canvas, creating different shades of brown, all controlled by the artist using it.
There are substantial differences between burning wood and painting with oil. In oil paintings, you start with the whole canvas and then work your way down to the details without any specific order. But with wood burning, you have to work one section at a time with all of its details, because there is no room for errors, as any mistake made cannot be erased or fixed.
Nada says her love for art had been since childhood, and starting at a young age, she spent many years painting on various materials. It also influenced her choice of study, although she only discovered drawing by burning wood after graduating. Now, with a little over 6 years of practicing this type of art, Nada believes the technique should be taught at art schools because of its raw and natural undertones.
I believe that expression can be much stronger without the use of color, as opposed to what is commonly known, that colors increase expression. You can use higher tones, use light and shades to increase the expressive nature of a portrait using monochromatic shades.
Although it seems simple, Nada says burning wood is not as easy as it looks. According to her, one portrait can take up to 5 months to complete, as each meticulous dot on the wooden slab needs to be carefully placed. The darker the color tone, the more time it will take her.
Up until today, when people ask me for portraits made by wood burning, it's difficult for me to oblige, and I do not sell my work. When a portrait takes up to 5 months to make, I become too attached to it.
Nada sells some of her artwork except for the pieces she creates by burning wood, because she grows too attached by the time she completes them.
Well, in Zimbabwe, a play once banned by former President Robert Mugabe has now been performed by a local theatre group for the first time. In 2012, the government stopped the performance of the play called 1983, The Dark Years. The story focuses on the horrors of government crackdown against opposition supporters in the early 1980s that human rights groups say also killed 20,000 civilians. VOA's Deborah Block has more.
1983, The Dark Years, portrays a grim chapter of Mugabe's rule. The play illustrates the Gukurahundi massacres by Zimbabwe's army against Ndebele civilians in the 1980s. The crackdown to crush political dissidents in Matabele land in western Zimbabwe spiraled into the killings of 20,000 civilians. Many others were tortured. The play shows a woman being chased and raped. Many of the young people watching the play were not even born when the massacre occurred, and those who remembered the carnage were afraid to talk about it.
This is a very sensitive issue, and where we come from in Matabele land, even only if you term the word Gukurahundi, you know, people will start raising their eyebrows, but who is talking about Gukurahundi? So we as a theatre group, we thought it is the right time to try and trigger this kind of debate whereby we need the nation to actually know what happened.
I am troubled of who I really am.
The story is told through the eyes of a young woman who is trying to find out what happened to her parents who died during the massacres.
I play the role of a young girl. She doesn't have a name because she doesn't know her identity, which is something that is actually happening in Matabele. There are many young girls and boys who do not know who their real fathers are because they were a result of rape that happened during the Gukurahundi.
The graphic scenes, which include a woman forced to burn her child, deeply affected the audience.
We lost our loved ones during that time. I was young by then. We could not sleep at home sometimes.
Kill them! Kill them all!
I really know how it has broken people down, and people need to actually forgive. At least we need for people to open up and speak out.
Zimbabwe's current president, Emerson Mnangagwa, Mugabe's security minister at the time, is widely thought to have been involved in the bloody campaign. But the play's director says since he came to power last November, political freedom is improving. Deborah Block, VOA News.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can also visit us online at voaafrica.com. Vincent McCory in Washington. Chamberlain also has our last word from Lagos.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. ChannelsTV.com is your source for local news, sports, and programming and everything in Nigeria. I'm Chamberlain Uso. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.